One of the trips that Fly helped coordinate was a trip to San Francisco State University.
All right.
So there was about 40 students that attended with teachers, and it was great to hear the feedback that students were giving us as to what it meant for them to experience that during the school day, and also how much the flexibility of a college program attracted students to continue to keep that as an open door.
Yeah, it was a great experience to take the whole entire school there. And a lot of students were walking away from that experience like, oh, how could I get on campus? Like, this is great. I have no idea that all this was available, so.
Did you get to go, Chris?
Yeah.
How was it for you?
It was fun. A lot of talking.
A lot of talking.
It's a lot of students.
Yeah.
And again, thanks to both of your teachers for coming in and supporting you tonight. I know it's a long night for you guys, so thank you so much for coming in too. And of course, Mr. Marinko, always, it's a pleasure.
Are there any future field trips planned to, like, with Fly or with going to other universities, other colleges, or with San Francisco State again?
Well, let's see, the next field trip I believe Fly is coordinating is a field trip where students participate in mock trials as well.
Nice.
So part of Fly's mission is to help students increase their leadership capacity, but also understand many of the rights that they're afforded in society so that they can make more informed decisions. And part of that is to experience what it's like to take part in court proceedings.
How many folks are involved in mock trial, Thorne?
Well, the group is, how many, 15? Yes. Somewhere between 12 and 15. But it's a group of students that they initially have that opportunity, and then if there's others that are interested, then depending on Fly's capacity, then we can incorporate more.
And so are you part of mock trial too, or? Are you part of mock trial as well? So it's you, man. You stepped up tonight. I know Thorne gets out, you know, a little later than they used to, but like you're here at night. This is late, you know what I mean? So all the students here, props to you for doing that. But this is also good training in terms of like the public arena. I feel the students at Thornton probably have an advance on that and understanding the ins and outs of the system, especially going to San Francisco State and seeing how that works. Like, a lot of people don't always think of themselves as going to college, but like trips like that make you realize, like, yeah, I could do this and I could probably do this as good or better than somebody else, right? So I actually work with the mock trial team at the high school I'm at, and so I would encourage you to do that. Even let people know, like, if people watch crime dramas and those kind of things, those are the kind of things that we're not just always on one side of the law or the other. The law is something that we are a part of, and that's why all of us run for office and are a part of that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your presentation, Chris. Great job, and thank you, staff. Fantastic. All right, let's bring up Jefferson ASB.
You guys can watch us.
Yeah.
Somebody's a little biased over there, okay?
I was just
Go,
gonna tell
Chris,
you, I'm
please.
emailing the Montreal guy. He's gonna email you guys at our school.
I do it for you.
There's chocolate.
So, hello, I'm Krista May Estrada, and I'm Jefferson's ASB Vice President of Outreach.
Hi, my name is Amanda Chich. I'm ASB Vice President of Spirit.
And I am Jillian Flores, ASB Secretary.
So actually on this first slide, we have a picture of the officers from 1927. Nice. Which we got by reaching out to them and having them send pictures of their yearbook.
This stops them up.
The hair,
It's still not Indian gear.
Wow. Okay, so the first day of school, we decided to change things up by having an actual theme, and so our theme was making everybody feel like a VIP. And so basically what we had is posters, so these right here are like quotes that we had around this campus that were just meant to be a little bit cute and funny. And so the whole entire point of the VIP was to have stars for students and teachers. And so we made stars and we put on every teacher's doors, and we had stars for students to put on lockers. And so basically the concept was that the teacher would get to feel special, and also for freshmen or for newcomers, they get to see where the teachers are, and it's easier for them to come by. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so for Club Rush, this is our first actual event that we have. And so basically it just meant for every club to come out, have a table, and to recruit new people. And so right here we have Poly Club, and they're doing their dance. So we have 34 clubs that participated at our annual Club Rush in August of this year. It's the largest opportunity for groups and organizations on campus to present themselves, to show off, basically. Lots of signs and cheering and plenty of spirit with show here. And then we also had 99.7 come over and just DJ for us. And so as you can see, next slide. So, and then so again for new clubs. So as we can see, there's Jillian up there in Makers Club. And so a few new clubs we have is Female Empowerment. And also, we just got forms, and there's a new club that's going to happen called Future Now. Female Empowerment and Future Now are both meant to empower students and to create equality and make students feel more, to give them a push into society as if they can do better, because everybody can do better. So we have, again, Makers Club, Grizzlies News Network, we have Tech Thursdays, we have the 2020 Census Group, and we have Future Now.
Makers Club is a fairly new club. We decided, me and the president there, which is Jasmine Acosta, decided that we wanted to further students' minds to the STEM field and wanted them to be able to release their creativity and make whatever they feel that they want to make. We have t-shirt presses, 3D printers, laser cutters, anything that they would think that they would want to make or think that they would want to be an entrepreneur, like a maker in the future.
Similarly, we have Tech Thursdays, which is our sort of newly formed coding club to go into the STEM field again. And Grizzly News Network is our journalism club, which was just opened up.
So right here we have our homecoming. This is our spring week and the days that happen. And so basically we have, on the top left we have our two teachers that were doing Twin Day, and on the top right, on the bottom right we have students who are doing Twin Day as well. And yeah, and so basically we had our first homecoming on a Saturday night, and it wasn't on a homecoming game night. So that meant that a lot of students came. And we had over 100 people that came to the dance, which was amazing. 300?
Yeah.
And then also there was homecoming rally, and as you can see here on the bottom right, we have teachers that are doing tug of war. And so this rally was different than other homecoming rallies in the sense that we had a lot of staff participation, and also we had not only class dances and ASB participating, but also other clubs such as Latino Heritage. Latino Heritage had their own dance going on, and a lot of people were excited and had so much fun. And then also to come back to homecoming dance, we had a photo booth and we had so much fun, and hopefully we can do it again when we have homecoming on Saturday nights.
We also raffled off 2 tickets to Rolling Loud at our homecoming dance.
Yeah, that really got students when it comes to the dance. Okay, now we have Foods Day, as John Campbell mentioned earlier. Foods Day, this is the second year, I'm pretty sure, that we implemented using the token system. So instead of students dealing with cash and change and all that, we decided that in order to get the food that you would want, you would buy tokens, which is 1 for $1. And using this system helps dealing with change and money system easier here at Jeff. And yeah, and so clubs can come participate and fundraise for their classes. There'd be like different kinds of foods, as he would say, like soul food, lumpia, and agua sort and funny stuff like that. So it was a really fun day, and all the clubs came out and had fun and danced to some music.
Okay. So this was Spooky Week, so basically in the last week of October we had this called Spooky Week, and basically we had LTAs happening during the whole entire week. And so on Halloween Day we had a game that was happening in the little theater, and we were just giving out prizes, and and a lot of people came to that, so that was cool. And then conveniently on Friday, it was November 1st, which is also Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos. And so we had Latino Heritage come and do their own LTA, and they also had an altar in the counseling center, and I believe, yeah, the counseling center. And so it was just a week to promote inclusivity with different type of cultures, and to just have everybody come into that fall spirit.
Here are more pictures of students, their costumes and staff.
Oh, we also had a door contest that happened, and a lot of teachers really got into it. And in my actual 4th period class, we had a lot of students who were so eager to do it. And it was just so fun to see all the doors being decorated and have so much spirit come on. So there's that.
That's okay, you look the same.
So fall sports, our football, cross country, volleyball, and cheer are doing actually pretty amazing this year. I mean, if you guys have ever been to one of the games, our team shows amazing sportsmanship and always cheers on everyone who plays, no matter if they're performing, say, cheer, or they're having a game or a meet for cross country. It's really fun to go to the games. Every stand, the stands are filled with many students, and everyone cheers on everyone. No one is frowning upon anyone. But whenever there's a game, it's all just really fun.
So CASEL, it's the annual collaborative leadership conference at Westmore High School. This year we only sent our freshmen and sophomores because we wanted to give them more experience, learning some skills. Juniors and seniors obviously had a bit more. And the response was that they loved meeting other ASB members and developing those skills. Yes.
ASB and student staff, so these are a couple pictures with our ASB students and our staff buddies. For the past couple years, ASB students are assigned 1 or 2 staff members for the whole year, so they would be able to get to know them. I think recently for Halloween, we made little staff buddy goodie bags. So we made like a little Halloween pun on a card and added some candy and delivered it to them, and these are pictures from Halloween together. So the reason why we wanted to have every student and every staff have a buddy is because we gained a lot of staff members this year here at JUHSD, a lot. And we want them to be able to feel included and be able to feel like they're community here at JUHSD, because there are a lot of staff members that are too nervous to go outside because they're new and they don't really know as many other teachers, but we want them to feel comfortable, and that's what our ASB students are trying to be able to do, because, I mean, here at JUHSD we want to be a community and we want to have everyone get involved. Giving back. So recently Makers Club did a fundraiser to support breast cancer research. As you can see, those shirts there were made with a minimum donation of $20. You get a free shirt, and all proceeds go to Susan G. Komen for their breast cancer fundraiser. As well as what we have planned is we have a toy drive with the Pacific Island together. Sorry about that.
No, we know.
And then we also have school-wide canned food drive and also campus beautifications.
So to continue with the giving back, like John mentioned earlier, this Saturday was the monthly food pantry. We served over 400 households/families, and from our start in January, we've served almost 4,000 families. So yeah, really it's a way to just give back to the community. So here's another that we got from the alumni. It's a picture of the whole freshman class from 1927, and I'm happy to say that since then our population has increased. So from our freshman year, personally in 2016, 2017 to now, our student population has increased about 300 students. With this increase, obviously, Both the community and diversity of our school has increased as well. Continuing. So Grizzly Flex Time. This is our first year with Grizzly Flex Time, and I would say it's gone extremely well. Both ourselves and other students have expressed how much they've enjoyed it, and the 30 minutes really goes a long way. Personally, there was a project in our English class, and I used it to meet up with my members and talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really helps every student who feels as if they're behind in their classes to really catch up with their teacher and catch up with anything they missed. So it really helps people get back on track, especially like for grades and all of that.
Yeah, and then this whole entire program is awesome for people who do sports or have jobs or have obligations after school, because most people that are not doing as well as they can be in schools mostly because of their out of school lives. So it's amazing that we have this.
So our climate committee, last March, Jefferson established its first student climate committee. Students and staff of different grades and backgrounds meet every collab day at lunch and 4th or 5th period to discuss campus issues with admin. It explores thoughts and feelings connected to social issues at school to find solutions.
College and Career Prep, our amazing college and career counseling department, has been actively prepping students for their life after high school. So recently we had a cram jam session last week for 3 days, Monday through Wednesday, and that really helped students who are applying for colleges really have time, like kind of one-on-one with their academic counselors to be able to help with their FAFSA or college applications, their PIQs and all that. And we also having a Cash for College tonight, as John mentioned earlier, for students and families in order to get help with their FAFSA. And they're also raffling off a Chromebook for anyone who goes tonight. And last month Jefferson hosted a College and Career Readiness Week, which included special information sessions about the CSU, UC, and private school systems, as well as fun raffles, and students also completed the PSAT or SAT that Wednesday as well.
Thank you.
It's all the pictures from Halloween.
Yes.
Where's my daughter?
I figured.
Oh, yeah.
I figured you dressed like that every day. I was like, look at that spirit. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, stay.
Oh, yeah.
Just open up. Students, anything, questions, comments? Go for it.
So I was just wondering, the flex time seems really good, because at least for me personally, I'm very busy with marching band and sports. So I was just wondering how that got implemented in your school.
I mean, it was mostly from students. Students asked for this in the climate committee, and so it's just that I believe that our staff and administration just heard us, and they were trying to find ways to help us, and they found teachmore.org. And I feel like, and I think they also just signed up with it, and that's how we got onto it.
Cool. So then do the rest of the classes just like shrink?
So the way that it works for our campus is that so you use your school ID and your school password for it, and then you would sign up and have appointments. And if you didn't have an appointment, or if a teacher didn't schedule you for it, because let's say that if you were failing a class, then you would have to go to that class and talk with your teacher and make up for it. But if you had no appointments or no place, you don't have to go anywhere, you can pick any class you go to that's in your schedule. Like you have the teacher, then you can go to their class. And then it's like a 30 student cap. So when that class is full, you have to look for another one.
To answer the shortened question, every period is shortened by 5 minutes, and then since we have 6 periods, that accumulates into the 30-minute period that we have for flex time. Yes.
I have a question about the 2020 Census Club. I was wondering if you go into specifics for what that club entails and what that really does, if you know anything about it.
It's actually not a club per se. They decided just to be a group, and Miss Coolish is in charge, so it's
Okay. Okay.
But they want to train everybody on how to fill out the census, families, communities, because that depends on our funding. So their goal is to get the word out in this next year.
All right, thank you.
Talk to Ms. Coolish.
Got it.
So, great presentation, my goodness. You even had enrollment, you had, who did you go to get the pictures of the class of?
Yeah, we contacted alumni.
Oh, is that Ms. Rasmussen?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. So, she's my fourth grade teacher. Oh, so.
It's actually like I Facebook stalked alumni group.
What's that?
I Facebook stalked like 30 different alumni groups because
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them to be involved.
Oh, okay.
And they started posting lots of yearbook stuff, and then one of them scanned their whole yearbook and sent it to me.
Oh,
So I
okay.
got that one, which was really cool because they were called the Spirit, not the Indian. So it was before the Indian, so I was like,
okay.
oh, so yeah, they're
was
really
that
cool.
was that the first graduating class? I can't remember.
1927.
I think 25 was.
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
I think 25 was because I actually interviewed someone who was the first graduating
Oh,
class.
cool.
Because my sister-in-law, her entire family in Daly City went to Jeff, and her uncle was one of the first, he was part of the first graduating class.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So she scanned it all in and sent it to me. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
But there's tons of other ones now. So like, I'm gonna get 60s and 70s. It's like really funny.
Oh, great.
We even had the graduating class of '79 come out at halftime on the football field.
I saw that. Yeah, they had a
Wow.
meetup. That was cute.
79. Yeah, so my daughter is a sophomore, she's an ASB, Carly, and she does love flex time, and she uses it for group projects to get caught up on things, because she has a lot of stuff she's doing after school. So, and she said that all her friends love it, so I'm really glad about that. And then Jillian, were you the one who designed the Jefferson Care shirts?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
There's one, that's the president right there. For
Okay.
Rangers Club. She's doing it.
Yeah, so they're great. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so Andy and I we donated to get shirts, so thank you for that. Yeah, it's wonderful. And God, you're doing a lot of stuff. I didn't realize that. So, yeah, always keeping busy. And thank you for representing Jefferson so well. Yeah, great.
Great presentation. It was good to see the school spirit. It's interesting that our mascot was called the Spirit, but that's a cool mascot. Grizzlies. I'm
I
glad.
don't know. There was no picture of it. It just says the words in all the yearbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a spirit doesn't have a picture. It's just the spirit.
Yeah.
Keeping the spirit alive. But I mean, with the food pantry, that was really good to see that, because I know that our city does that, and that our high school students are involved with that means a lot. Just if you think back to even the 1920s, I guess a couple years later, the stock market crashed, right? So there are always ups and downs. Daly City, those are some of the first teenagers in a high school in our city, because this city was established about 15, 16 years before that. So putting things in perspective, that's nice to see that. I'm glad to hear Flex Time is going well. I know we heard that at the site meeting. Also that I just noticed that fill out your FAFSA or DREAM Act is really important. I'm glad that was on the flyer. So many of our students, I feel like, even if it doesn't, people don't feel it directly affects them, it does indirectly at the very least, because we have friends and other family who could benefit and will and should benefit from what we have, at least at a national level. So glad that happened tonight. Just wrapping up right now, I guess, and hopefully more of that. And I'm glad there's a 2020 Census Club. That's new. I've never heard of a high school doing work on the census, but as people were able to register to vote earlier, right, in advance, these are the kind of things that we should be doing. I can't think of a better organization to do that and student government. Like having mock trial, you know. Do we have mock trial, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. So yeah, keep up the good work and the Grizzly spirit. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the great presentation. I need one of those hoodies, so we can when we get a chance. Just saying, but I love the presentation. Thank you for being so inclusive in your community and always giving back. I always appreciate that very much. And you're not only thinking about your peers, but also the teachers as well, which is really nice to hear. So thank you for that, and I look forward to all the wonderful other things that you will be doing the rest of this school year, and I will be coming for a school visit very soon as well. So thank you, ladies.
So first I want to thank your teacher who looks like she doesn't feel well. I'm so grateful that you still made it out here today. So thank you so much, and I hope you feel better.
Thanks.
And then I know all of you guys too. It's nice. I'm like all the students that are coming in today I've had experience with. You two, I feel like I see all the time because I watched Mission Fusion last year a lot. And so, because I bought the video, last year I thought was phenomenal. So, and when you performed at the San Mateo County School Organization, where people still talk about that. So, thank you very much. And then, you, Longevity, are a fantastic presenter. I sat through your speech in your class. And so I knew, I was like, oh, she's destined for great things. So, the presentation tonight was fantastic. I really feel like if it wouldn't be too much trouble, if you guys could videotape yourselves doing it, because that is and I would help, because that is a commercial. Like that, we could just show that video.
For open enrollment.
Right. I mean, to me, that just was fully encompassed. Everything at the school was very student-focused and student-based. And after seeing that, you know, I would want to send my students.
Well, open house is on the 14th.
Right, I don't, no rush, no pressure. Like, it doesn't have, because this, it
is really.
This would hold, like, I think, you know, but this is the kind of thing that drives people to say, this is where I want to send my student. I mean, it was a fantastic presentation. So thank you guys all very much for the work that you did on it.
Yeah, that was a really great presentation, and especially, and the fact you had the throwbacks to 1927, you know, and especially, you know, knowing that the 100th anniversary is coming up, you know, soon, which is pretty exciting. You know, and just on a side note, actually, my brother-in-law is the editor of Cal High Sports, and last year he actually sent over to me the history of the football matchups between Jefferson and South San Francisco. And I know that Jeff destroyed South City this year. But it's interesting because the very first, just from a history perspective, the very first football game that Jeff played was against South City in 1924. And they lost 50-0, which, you know, but the whole history behind it is pretty cool.
Why do you
So
have to say that?
sorry. They came back around and destroyed 41-0 this year. So it's all part of it. That's all.
Andy.
No, but I think what's great is that your presentation showed the rich history of your school as well, and what you're about today, and that was really fantastic. So continue to keep up the good work and the excitement that you have and the fresh ideas you're bringing to it. And I am blown away that you have served 4,000 families with the pantry. So kudos to you and the Jefferson community, Mr. Bashir's, you know, I mean, really fantastic job.
I just really, I'm always impressed by the social justice bent that Jefferson takes. Like, it's very involved in the community, and this is the whole purpose, is that we're trying to create good citizens. And so that, you know, you do that and you model that in a safe space so that you're confident when you move forward. So I'm glad that there's so many different opportunities to model good citizenship for when you leave you. I'm very excited about the world that has the Jefferson Grizzlies going out into it. So thank you again so much.
Anything to add?
Oh, just well done. And hats off to our ASB director over there and to the principal. I agree. I'm not going to repeat everything, but really there's a place for every student at that school. And it's so important connecting every student to those kinds of activities. You don't know what it is that's going to interest a student and keep them engaged in the school day as well. So I love that. Thank you for that.
And before we depart, I do want to say thank you so much also for taking the lead and welcoming the new staff. That's really, really such a powerful thing that you guys have done, and to create that sense of family with the new staff. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to stay.
Yeah,
I have to
we're
stay.
pausing so you guys can just, you know. Yeah. We won't feel offended. Thank you.
Awesome job. Congratulations, Amanda.
See you later. Bye, ladies. Bye.
All right, moving on to consent. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, item 13?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 14, public comment. Do we have any blue cards this evening? No. Are you sure? Can you check, please? Okay. All right. Moving on, item 15A1, ethnic studies update, Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Lee. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I will be briefly talking about the ethnic studies update and where we are as a district. And again, that is the purpose of tonight's presentation. So just quickly, why ethnic studies? Studies show that it helps students develop strong sense of identity. It provides students with skills and language to critically analyze, respond, and speak out on social issues. It strengthens social and cultural awareness and helps foster a classroom environment of trust between students and teachers, enabling them to discuss contentious issues and topics as well as current events. So what is ethnic studies? It is an interdisciplinary study of race, ethnicity, and indigeneity with an emphasis on experiences of people of color in the United States. So there was a proposal, AB 331, which would add a semester-long high school course in ethnic studies and make it a graduation requirement, starting during the 2024-2025 school year. But there had been a lot of concerns, so they had developed a curriculum already, and it had gone through many reviews and comments. And based on the comments of some groups, that some people feel that there was lack of teaching about anti-Semitism. Some of the groups felt that they were not represented enough. So for instance, the Armenians, Greeks, Hindus, and Koreans. And because of that, and also just to let you know, like the focus of the current draft is on Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, and indigenous people. So when the other group basically was saying that, you're not representing us enough, the other core group is saying, well, if you add this curriculum like the other groups, then it will water down the curriculum. So there had been a debate back and forth on that there needs to be a revision on this curriculum. So very recently, I believe it's in September of this year, the CDE, State Board of Education, decided to delay and that they need to continue to revise and improve the model curriculum draft, and they will continue that. So what are we doing at JUHSD? As you know, we have not implemented this as a graduation requirement because we are really waiting for what the state guidance will be, because we don't want to put something in place and then all of a sudden change it based on the state's requirements or expectations. However, we have touched some on this topic already, so especially at Oceana High School. Their whole humanities curriculum is based on ethnic studies. They also have a class called Race and Membership in American History. The English department is also in the process of adopting culturally relevant novels for Jefferson, Terra Nova, Thornton, and Westmore. And in fact, this Thursday, they will be meeting under the leadership of Ms. Robinson and Ms. Rubin. They will be meeting with a group of English teachers to review 5 novels and look at it through the lens of cultural relevancy. And what they're planning to do also is the current adopted novels is to look at those novels and review them too through that lens. We've also explored some dual enrollment courses through Skyline College this year. We did put these classes on our course selection sheet. However, the sign-up was not high enough for a class to be a go. However, we will try this again for the following school year. And also there is an integration of these topics in social science courses. Some of the potential barriers are budgetary constraints, lack of instructional resources and support, and again, just time, because we only have 6 periods in a day, so we would really need to, figure out a structure when this becomes a requirement. And right now, again, just as a standalone course, there had been lack of interest just right now with Skyline's dual enrollment class. So some of the next step is we need to explore some various models of the implementation, continue with adoption of culturally responsive novels in English language arts, perhaps convene a committee to analyze the current situations and potential solutions, embed some of these lessons and units in our current scope and sequence, and continue to partner with Skyline College to offer perhaps some ethnic studies classes. Some of the courses that were placed on the course selection sheet, I believe there was women's studies, history of African Americans, some art classes, that is Asian art, I believe. But again, the sign up had been low this year, so we will try to push this and advertise it more for the following school year. But that is it.
For comments, questions?
The next agenda item.
Most of our agenda, but I did ask for it. Does everybody have any?
I just have one comment, because it would be hard to implement as a class. I agree. Is it possible to implement it into studying like world history, because there's so many like different groups that felt they weren't represented, but world history is kind of like comprehensive.
So it is something that we are exploring. We're also going to adopt a new world history curriculum. So when we adopt the curriculum, we have to make sure that we're looking at this through this lens.
Are there textbooks like that yet?
There are some, but we have to look at, again, if the representation may be, not as reflective of our population, because I would assume, that's what I would like to see, is that, our text reflects who we are as a district, and it may look, a little different, down south or wherever it is. So we may also have to supplement those materials.
I mean, is there really a way to incorporate everything in ethnic studies into a semester, like without it spilling over to other, because there's so much to cover, how can you really?
And I really think, embedding this in everything that we are doing, it's very, very critical. And so we have to, wait what the state wants, if, we can just embed it throughout all of our classes, English classes, history classes, because it fits right in with everything that we do.
Right.
So for instance, when we looked at our biology textbook, we also had to make sure that, some of the pictures and the representation is not all, Eurocentric, and so we are looking at that and embed it throughout.
Oh, I was wondering for the English language arts books, the culturally responsive novels, would they be already added into the English curriculum if they were added in, or would this be for its own semester?
It would be not for this year, but it would be added in, the board will adopt it, and then it will be part of the scope and sequence as one of their novels to use.
So I don't want to teach ethnic studies. I feel like I don't want the study of me othered, right? I don't want to have to walk into a special class and learn about me. So, and I feel like I want to get away from the ethnic studies model. There's lots of people that aren't represented. If you are part of the LGBTQI, nothing happened with those folks before you were born. You don't learn about yourself at all in any of the books that you read, any of the history that we have. So I would just like us to be a school that teaches real history, that has full inclusion, that has our students reflected back at them anytime they walk into a classroom. And that you don't have to go off campus to Skyline or be in a special class for a semester to get, a couple of days of yourself before we go back into this very Eurocentric, education that we are forcing all of our kids to go through. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm hoping that the work that is being done through the equity committee and that task force, that we can use that committee to help guide us on different strategies that we can use, because we can't wait for textbooks. We can't, the textbooks are probably not coming because this is not a motivating factor for enough Americans, enough districts to get them to create a textbook. So what can we do, as you're talking about supplementally, to use current textbooks, but to also, adopt? And then the other thing is that, the books that are in the library, like there's other things that we can do that are to have a set of texts, vision, things that you can see, things that you read that are more reflective of the people that are around us. So I'm glad that we're starting with the English language arts, but I think also, when I look in all the school libraries, there is a section, there's that has ethnic groups in it. Then during all the history months, there's a thing that's put up during that history month where they pull all those books out, put them in a special section, and they put them back. I mean, again, there shouldn't be so few books that you can pull all of them out and put them in a special. Like, it should be full within the library. So, looking at these type of things, this is the kind of thing. I don't want to invest heavily into something that I feel is not going to be beneficial and really disrupting historic systemic racism and bias. Like, I feel like the way we do that is to have a curriculum that's fully involved. And Oceana is a perfect model for this. They do that at that school. And so I think that, we don't have to, recreate the wheel. We can look at what's been doing at that school and build upon it. So that's where I am.
And again, how can you fit all of that into one semester without really?
Well, you can. I mean, that's right.
And more, let's just check the box and we're done with it. That's what it becomes. Right.
Ms. Bachman, does it say it has to be a standalone course?
The different models, right now, they're just presented in different models. So I don't, there was no directive just yet that it's going to be a standalone course, but I know that the proposal for AB 331 is that, a semester of ethnic studies, but they didn't really say, like, can we embed it? So for instance, some of the districts embed health throughout their other curriculum. So I don't know if they will allow us to do, the same thing for ethnic studies as well.
And oftentimes there's a waiver process. So if we have a better way, that's
and there's
something
so much data that shows this is the better way to do it.
I agree.
So.
I agree.
Exactly, and it's about changing mindsets, that the work that we are already doing in the equity work and network. The fact that there's still a really long way to go, quite frankly, when it comes to the mindset shifts that we all need to make. The fact that every session I go to, even though I've been through some of this a fair bit already, there's always something new I'm learning because of something somebody is sharing about him or herself that I missed. And you can't do that in a semester one course. And the fact that, here we did offer it as a dual enrollment course and it basically, you got crickets is really what it comes down to. That already speaks to the fact that there's a larger issue at play that can't be fixed by just a dual enrollment course or a single semester course.
As we were talking about this, I was just thinking about my AP literature class that we, specifically that teacher makes a really big point about teaching us material that isn't just specific to the syntax of the English language, that we're reading a book where we're learning about apartheid right now and we're doing a whole giant research paper about it. So she really makes a point to incorporate all these different kind of historical aspects into the class, and I just think that that's a really good way to do it. That, at least personally for me, the most effective way for me to learn about things that are happening with people is through reading these firsthand books that, like these firsthand accounts of these really powerful authors and their experiences. I feel like that's the best way that we can learn about these things, and that we don't necessarily need a history textbook, you know, that honestly I feel like that's not as effective as reading someone's actual story, because really that's what makes history interesting. It's like the people's story, not just like what country won what battles. That, you know, I think that's been a really good way for me at least to learn. And I feel like if we were able to incorporate that into our English classes, that, you know, we can use those novels to teach people how to write argumentative essays and stuff, but then also have them learning about issues like mental health and, you know, all of the stigmas against different people of different identities. That I think that would be a really effective way to do it.
And we need you to speak at the State Board of Education.
And like, I do really agree with what Ms. El-Houdin was saying before about the kind of having people be an other, that I feel like having a specific class that would kind of further the point of like having people be other, that it's, I don't know, I just feel like people would feel awkward about having this whole separate class just to talk about themselves. That it's like, I feel like everyone should be weighted equally, you know, that like it should be equally distributed throughout the classes of everyone learning about each other. That it shouldn't just be, oh, here's these other people that we have to specifically designate a class to learn about. That I just want to have a curriculum where everyone is kind of like united and like, hey, let's learn about all these people and their, you know, how they work and all these different people, and just to kind of be more united. Because I feel like especially right now, like at least in the United States, I feel like everyone's kind of really separated, and I hate that. Like I want everyone to be able to come together. Mm-hmm. So I feel like having that curriculum is going to be a really important part of that, especially like for school culture too, for bringing the students together to like understand each other.
For all 4 years, not just for one semester.
Exactly. Like having the Holocaust survivors speak to the class.
And important, they're going to be going over World War II, and Mr. Sands asked if my father, who is a Death March survivor, could speak to the class. And he has, you know, spoken at so many conferences, and he was a veterans advocate for Philippine Scouts. And I asked him, said, "Really? The school down the street?" I said, "Yeah, okay."
Awesome. Thanks.
So one of the things that I just wanted to acknowledge is that I'm glad that we're updating this. I'm glad that, you know, we're taking the time to discuss ethnic studies, and that ethnic studies is really misunderstood. I just asked a quick question. How many people in the room have actually ever taken a class in ethnic studies? Please raise your hand.
Well, 2 of my sisters teach it, so yes.
Sure.
Very involved. One of my sisters is getting her doctorate degree in ethnic studies.
Studies.
I have a degree.
I took a course about myself, Asian American Studies, and 2 Native American Studies courses. So.
Right on. I actually happen to get a degree in it, right? So my degree though wasn't through ethnic studies because there was no major for mixed ethnic studies. And being somebody who's mixed race, I wanted to take classes in all those areas to fully understand the things I didn't necessarily understand, because even though I am mixed, I'm not mixed with everything, and I need to learn beyond myself. And being raised in this community, a lot of things we're saying here is ethnic studies. We're talking about civil and human rights in South Africa, right? We're covering that unit in our world history class as well. And so in AP classes, one of the only classes I learned in high school about some of my native roots and learning that was through my AP US history course. So I fully recognize that we could and should, and the movement for ethnic studies was to achieve this conversation, right? So this conversation, to me, I hear a lot of reasons in terms of why and how we should brand ethnic studies, which is actually at the forefront of where ethnic studies is going in higher education, where it started. Coming out of the civil and human rights movements that we've pushed over the course of the 20th century and before and after that, right? And so when I think about this, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is because other districts may be pursuing ethnic studies on with more fortitude, or perhaps with more intention. But I feel like this is not just my soapbox, but this is something we should really be considering with a lot more gravity when we talk about equity. Ethnic studies was a conversation about equity before we called it equity, right? We discussed this 15, 20 years ago when I was in college, right? So when we're talking about a lot of the trainings we have for adults, right, in our schools, equity trainings are essentially ethnic studies classes built into interactive discussions, which is great because we can call it what we want to. We can call it history class, we can call it, ethnic studies. But the fact remains that we need more of this guidance in our curriculum, and I think without it, our standards or Common Core standards in California as a state are more progressive than other states because we are more diverse, because we do incorporate a lot of perspectives. And I have heard the argument that LGBTQ is not part of ethnic studies. That is bogus. That is completely false.
I didn't say that.
I know. I'm just saying is I've heard that in the narratives that comes with often those that seek to distance or separate. There's actually an article just I think today or a few days ago where there are other universities kind of putting it out there to kind of divide faculty at the college
But
level.
it's not part of the California curriculum though, right? So the ethnic studies curriculum that's going to come from the CDE, LGBTQI history is not part of it. So that's what I'm talking about. You're talking about collegiate level ethnic studies, which is a completely different animal than what we're going to be doing at high school level and what's coming from the CDE. So that's why I'm saying.
You're talking totally though.
No, I'm not, because I've listened to all of the hearings on it, and I've been involved in it deeply with the CDE through CSBA. So I think I do know what I'm talking about here, and that's why I fought for ethnic studies to be pushed through, because I feel like without it being coming from the state, most high schools won't even have the conversation. But what I'm saying is, what I think the CDE is going to push through is bare minimum, and I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's more expansive than just one course, one semester. And I would also push back on you a little bit about how seriously we're taking it.
Yeah.
I would challenge you first to be a part of the equity network that's happening in this district and to go to one of those meetings, which you have not done yet.
There were like 2, I think.
Well, there's been 4.
Right.
But
that's okay. I
no,
mean,
but I'm just saying, because you were,
Actually, it's
just so
not.
I can finish my point.
No.
But just so I can finish,
because
just so I can finish my
let's just
point
be clear
though.
as we're discussing these things. Let's be clear on what the
Right,
facts
but
are. Yeah,
just so
go
I
ahead.
can finish my point,
Yeah.
is that you made an allegation that we're not taking this as seriously as we should,
You're not
and I'm
making
saying,
allegations.
well, you said
Right.
that, you said that. So I'm just
I think
saying,
we should be taking it with all the gravity it should be taken.
okay,
So
but
this
I'm
is-
saying before you can make that statement, I think you should be a part of that meeting and go to those meetings before you can make a statement like that. That's all, and I'm
All
done.
right. Well, see, I don't disagree with the work being done. Obviously, I've been a part of that.
You have not been in.
Since I was in college.
Okay, but
which
I'm talking about the work that's being done here in the district.
That's great, and I'm glad to see it. It's one of the reasons why I want to bring this conversation up, because this conversation started with the things that we are doing, which I appreciate, because this is the main point, right? What are we doing? This is an update, right? This is not a mandate. The state's going to do something eventually. It took about 20 years to get it in San Francisco with movement. We have professors from San Francisco State who've been pushing that as well, right? Who've been able to expand that. We have family involvement, obviously, right? So for me as a college student, I always felt like, why don't we have this in our community? Well, we do. We have it in our history classes. We have it in our English classes. But the only reason we have it in those classes is because of ethnic studies. So we don't necessarily have to have a class called ethnic studies. I would hesitate to say we don't need ethnic studies, because that was a conversation that started with in the beginning of the meeting. And as it goes there, I mean, those are the kind of things I think dial back where we are and how we can push forward as an extremely diverse community.
I think you're misinterpreting what I said.
Let me finish what I'm saying,
Okay.
so I can get to the point. So
Sure.
my point being is this: the CDE is going to set a minimum. You're right. It's never going to be enough. I was actually at the College of Ethnic Studies meeting at San Francisco State recently, and we're discussing that point exactly. And to the point is, the university, especially CSU, has a huge role to play in shaping that curriculum. But there are no credential programs that mandate ethnic studies as a requirement. There are cultural competency courses. As a teacher, I know this because I've been through those courses. Cultural relevance is a part of it. Everybody here with a credential knows that. We didn't get BCLAD, which is bilingual education, until we had a movement to push for bilingual education for those who are coming from communities that speak more than one language. So when we have those kind of things built into our English and history courses, those are amazing opportunities. It doesn't change the fact that without pursuing some of these options, at least through doing enrollment and then promoting them, that's the challenge at the colleges as well. There's under-enrollment in ethnic studies at the colleges. So the question that I'm posing and what I would ask, and the reason I bring this update, are all the reasons why this discussion is serious. And I don't think the CDE is going to be able to lead on this because it's a district initiative, right? It's a statewide initiative, but it's also a national movement. So how we're going to incorporate these, we should be looking to those departments and colleges. I think Skyline is a great partner. I would add that we're right here in the Bay Area next to San Francisco State, which is actually a close university, and the leader, if not the leader in our state, to kind of push forward this conversation and in line with our equity work. Whether or not I've been to a meeting at equity work is one thing. Of course, I'm on board with that. And I've been doing this work since before I was even on a board, right? So what I'm bringing to the table is this discussion and to further it, not to say, let's wait for the state to do something, because when they do something, it will be a minimum. And I would ask that we get ahead of it in the ways we have been doing. So everything that we're doing here, and I think Next Steps is a good way to just kind of pivot, because I don't think it's an argument between people. We all feel different about ethnic studies, about whether we value it on certain levels, and in certain ways it should be channeled. I majored in it because I majored in a lot of things. It's an interdisciplinary major. Our students are getting an interdisciplinary education in our classes, and so I think the goal is to weave it into all of our curriculum, so teachers have that training. But it won't stop.
And I think that was said multiple times. Well, during this discussion. And the reality is, we've been speaking about equity, at least in this district, really on a more concerted effort over this past year. And certainly, over the year when Ms. Al-Houdin and I were doing the equity work through CSBA, and of course all the work we've actually done in the past 2-3 months that you have missed. So contextually,
it's not about me. This is about things. I would like to take.
Nate, let me finish my point. You asked.
Go ahead.
Okay. Contextually, actually are not aware of what the work we're doing here, because you haven't been in the meetings where we've actually discussed it. That's really the issue that I have. Okay. Is that I understand where you're coming from, but it's actually understanding why we are doing it, where we are right now, the staff who are doing the work with us, which includes several people in this room right now. It's about the mindset change. It's about creating a culture where it's embedded in all we do. It's about the fact that when we are given curriculum to look at, to approve as a board, that we're looking at it through an equity lens, that it is about what Kalima has said, what Ms. Cole has said about the way that the instruction is embedded into what's there, and what we're doing at OCM. That's what it's about. So for me personally to say, no, we don't need an ethnic studies course, it's because it becomes another item to check off. And it's not about embedding the equity lens into our existing culture, which we don't have right now, only in pockets.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. I would say that one, I would ask people to respect in this room people's opinions, the perspectives as part of ethnic studies, to understand everybody's opinion and perspective. Two, my presence at a meeting for equity has almost nothing to do with the legitimacy of what people are pushing on a state and national level. I would not take that stance.
That's not why we're saying it.
No, but there's a point that is being said, and I think it's diminishing what we're addressing today. Because this is my item on the agenda. Let's not do that.
It's not being diminished.
Well,
we know your heart is
right.
I appreciate that.
We were responding to your diminishment of how we feel about the topic.
Most people here are in agreement that we don't want an ethnic studies class.
Because we want to incorporate it within the whole curriculum, not just one class. So we want to bring the relevancy in every single class, not just one specific class, and say, well, we can fit everything into one semester when we cannot. So it's like, that's why, Tiana's like, well, we should be learning about it in biology. We should be learning it. It's the relevancy and the correlation that they have with the classes that they're taking, and how they can apply it with like the knowledge that they're learning. So they can say, okay, I can identify with that, and it relates to me. Not just, oh, we're going to learn about what happened in the Revolutionary War, or, like, how does that apply? So it's like so they're trying to say that there's going to be a better way of applying ethnic studies, if you want to say that. So that's what they're saying. And then us taking the classes is helping us apply all those things, equitably in all the classes, not just say we're going to throw all these little lessons into one little class and try to make sure everybody, all the students understand. And then you're going to say it's going to be required that they take this class, when Karine said that they offered the class and there was very low enrollment. So it already is an option and nobody is taking it. So that's the dispute here, That's what they're trying to say.
No, and I acknowledge, thank you for clarifying those. I did point those out as well, and I would like to say that it's more, just to say this, I would highly encourage, and I would say for the next update, maybe we can revisit this towards the end of the year because legislation is moving Sacramento, not because they're crazy, not because universities don't know that ethnic studies is somehow not important. At the higher education level, we see all these school shootings. We see all this violence in our country. No, we see a lot of things in our country that requires the equity lens we're talking about. So there's a reason why this is moving, and I get it on the local level. I'm not trying to take away from the points people are making.
But here, right here, we need to focus on it on the local level. Dr. Lori, do you want to add something?
I do. I think one of my concerns about, I've seen this from experience, when you have ethnic studies as a standalone course, there's no guarantee that you've changed the minds of or practices of the teachers teaching the rest of the subjects.
Yep.
When you start to put that curriculum in the hands of teachers who sit down and plan, that's where you're going to see huge growth.
Right.
And you know, I understand that the state's trying to check things off, but I think we can do a better job.
Absolutely. Like, modeling what's been done in Arizona, modeling what they're trying to do in San Francisco, a much broader program. I don't understand the pushback because I feel like we're trying to expand on your idea and do it in a way that's much more meaningful and impactful for students and the community at large. So I'm not understanding the pushback, to be quite frank.
But there's no pushback. All I'm doing is raising a question,
Well,
right?
can we wrap this combo up then?
No,
if we're
no.
all in agreement?
I like to just respect the fact that I didn't come here to make an argument. I feel like there's a lot of antagonism. I spoke last to just bring up the issue. Thank you for the presentation. I think the input that we're talking about, and this, I don't want to, this is late. We're here on a Tuesday night in November. It's election day in the city. There are things happening, right? This is to understand what's going on beyond our district and to understand what we're doing in our district as a part of a larger thing, not just because we're channeling it and we're doing it perfectly. I would also ask that, I'm not an expert in ethnic studies, but I do have a degree in ethnic studies and an advanced degree in social science. So I'm not just making these things up. I'm not here to proselytize. I'm not here to tell you what you should know or you should know or anybody should think of. I personally think ethnic studies can be marketed better. I think it can be done better at the college level. I don't think it's just about ethnic studies. Obviously, it's about changing the way we think. The whole movement around a lot of this was to understand the worldview of multiple perspectives around the world, and I think we're doing that. What I do want to ask is that our district take seriously and consult experts in ethnic studies, people with PhDs, people who work for those departments, people in universities that have leadership in the Bay Area that can actually provide us more focus, because I don't think Sacramento's going to have it, and I will contend that the work that we're doing is great, but it's not complete and is missing a component, and this can inform it in ways no other department can do. Okay. I believe that fully with my heart. And it's not just because I'm a cheerleader for one thing, it's because I do believe in all these things, because I've seen it and I've been a part of it enough to know as a teacher what I see missing in my colleagues' training, what I see missing in police officers' training, what I see missing in healthcare, and all the things in other industries that we exist in, right? So those are the reasons why I bring it up, and I want it to be taken seriously. And I would like just to ask not to dismiss ethnic studies as a course is not effective. I totally disagree with that. One course can change somebody's life in many ways. And equity training can do the same thing in a weekend, right? So if we can believe we can do this in different ways with our students in high schools because we grew up learning these things, even in our experiences, why don't we believe we can do that with more options, right?
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Archipinti. All right, moving on to...
Can I say one thing? You have this passion. That would be really helpful if you came to our equity task force.
I'm already trying to be, the next one is scheduled, so I totally, yes, no, it's understandable. Yeah, but I mean, I would like to ask to think about this in greater lens. Like, I will have to say this. It's not just my item, this is our item. This is one of our tasks.
We completely, we hear you, we understand, that's why we've been doing this work. All right, we'll move on to item 15A2, CASP results. Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Lee. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting the results of the 2019 California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. And I just want to let you know that it is our current seniors who took this assessment last spring. And this is the 5th administration of the assessment. Again, the purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide information specifically on the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment scores and to review the 5-year score trend for student groups as well. Just as a reminder, the purpose of the CASP assessment is it is designed to improve teaching and learning It provides information about students learning in the year that the test is taken, so that would be last year, and identifies areas of support students may need in the following year. And it measures students' learning of the standards, grade level expectation in each tested subject. And as you know, only our 11th grade students took this assessment. And again, as a reminder, CAST system is an assessment system. It's like an umbrella with many different parts. So there is the California Science Test, which our students took last year, but the information or the data will not be available until January of 2020. There's also the Spanish Reading and Language Arts, which is an optional exam that our students did not take. And there are additional resources, including the interim assessments and some digital library formative assessment process, where it is a website with lesson plans and some assessments as well. But tonight I'm going to focus on the middle part, which is the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments for English Language Arts and Math. So this is the overall score district-wide. As you can see, about 56% of our students met or exceeded standard in language arts, and about 35% met or exceeded in mathematics. This is the trend over 5 years. As you can see, we slightly dipped last year. However, it's pretty much remained the same. 2017 has been the highest percentage points thus far. For mathematics, again, 2017 has been the highest, but it's still kind of like a bell curve, and we've dipped again just a little bit, but it's still higher than the initial assessment at the beginning of 2015. Here's the comparison for English Language Arts. It's a comparison among our district, the San Mateo County District, and it's only for their 11th grade students, and the state of California. And each of the bar represents each of the years it was given. And according to this chart, again, we're not really that far off with the state of California. But this is the first time that we've dipped in ELA for below than the state's level. Here is the comparison in the math area. As you can see, again, only 35% of our students met or exceeded standard. Our scores are a little above the state's average, but below than San Mateo County. Some of the ethnicity trends. So again, this is broken down by every year, so 5 years, and it's broken down by ethnicity. You will not see Native Americans and Pacific Islanders as part of this cohort because they have less than 10 students. And you will also be able to tell that for African American students, we only have 4 years of data because last year we had less than 10 students as part of that cohort, and they don't give us data if the number of students is less than 10. And I just want to point out, with this graph, that equity between Asians and African Americans and Asians and Latinos, and this has been persistent year after year. Here's the comparison in math. And again, as you can see, even the gap is wider in math among our Asian students and African American and Hispanic and Latino. And to compare the gap, again, I had to use last year's data because we didn't have it this year. The gap increased for both math and language arts. Same thing for Hispanics, the gap also increased from 21% to 42% in English language arts and 34% to 57% in mathematics. For English language fluency trends, I just want to remind you that EL stands for English Learner. IFEP stands for Initially Fluent as English Proficient. RFEP means reclassified as Fluent English Proficient. And I'm just going to go back to IFEP means that they indicated another language other than English on their home language survey. They took an assessment for the very first time that they entered one of our districts, and then when they took that test, they passed it. And so they're initially fluent as English proficient. For RFEP, which is reclassified as fluent English proficient, when they came in, they took that test first. They did not pass it the first time. So what happens is that every year they have to take the assessment and pass that assessment along with passing another assessment. So we've used the English language gains, but they also have to get at least a C in English and a 2.0 GPA. So getting reclassified is, pretty tough statewide. And EO is English only, and when they fill out their home language survey, they put English in all 4 fields. So I just want to point out on this slide, again, the gap between English learners and non-English learners. That's for English language arts, and this is for math. And this graph, basically, it's not that much, but they're doing a little better in math than in English language arts. Our student trends for students with disability. This has been a trend over 5 years, and we had actually decreased the gap from 2015 to 2019 from 42 to 40% in English language arts. And we've slightly increased the gap in math. But as you can see, only 6% of our students with disabilities met or exceeded this standard. For socioeconomically disadvantaged students, this is one student group that had decreased the gap from 24% to 15% in ELA. And it also decreased in mathematics from 19% to 16%. Here's a comparison of each of the school sites. As you can see, Jeff has pretty much stayed around the same percentage points. Oceana had dipped slightly. Same thing with Terra Nova. Thornton pretty much remained the same except for the 2017 year. And Westmore also decreased in ELA. Same trends for math. Jeff is about the same. Oceana also dipped. Terra Nova dipped. So that Thornton remained with 0%, and Westmore also dipped. So some of the summary of findings, the overall score slightly dipped in ELA and math, but overall it remained flat, and this is true of the results for the state of California. The achievement gaps widened over time in all ethnic groups, not just Hispanic and African Americans. And there's a huge and persistent achievement gap between English learners and non-English learners. The gaps between students with disabilities and students without disabilities decreased, and English learners posted the lowest proficiency rates. Some of our next step is to analyze the student group scores at the school sites and come up with some possible root causes and action steps on how to address the discrepancy, monitor the implementation of our current scope and sequence, administer benchmark assessments and review the results, administer the actual practice tests so that students are familiar with the exam. Again, the last time that our 11th grade students took the test was in 8th grade. And finally, improve the messaging to parents, students, and staff of the importance of this exam. And that is it.
Questions from Ms. Barker?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch, why wasn't there data on the African American students?
If there are 10 or less students in the cohort, then they don't give us the data. So there's last year, I believe either 9 or only 9 African Americans in the 11th grade year.
In like the whole?
In the whole, yeah, district. Yeah.
Yeah. My kids graduated.
Drop it down. It was like 2 of them at once.
Right, I took 2 right at once.
Oh my God.
Really just mess with the numbers.
Jeez.
The staff turnover certainly is a contributing factor as well. I know you didn't mention it, but I know that would make sense.
And, I also want to point out, what we talk about staff turnover. I want to point out like the administration's turnover from 17 to 18 to 18 to 19, that there was a 52% retention rate for administrators. So our vice principals that, that help facilitate this exam were fairly new with the assessment system. And so, we need to do a better job in making sure that, we're supporting them in this administration.
I just want to comment on the way we administer. So I only have the experience of last year, but I don't feel the test scores are reflective of the work our teachers have done or what our students know, because I don't know that teachers have been trained, administrators have supported giving those practice tests in class. So I can speak for a couple of schools, students went in never taking a practice test, and that's problematic. There's also an issue with the way that we set up the schedules. When you're only given an hour in a class to work on one of those two tests, part of that time is collecting students' calculators, giving them the Chromebooks, going over the instructions, they start the test, they just barely get into the test, and then it's time to close down the class again. So I'd be interested in hearing from our seniors tonight, but I feel that we could do a better job with the way we prepare students for the actual technical part of taking the test and helping the teachers understand their role in preparing students for that. Aside from that, as a statistician, I just have issues with this test in general. And there was a big report last year, a big push to go to more of a growth model rather than the averaging of student scores. So it'll be interesting to see how California comments after they look at the flat scores for the state as well. I just don't feel students are invested in the 11th grade test either. I mean, I think students were more interested in the PSAT and the SAT than they were this 11th grade test.
Yeah, for the CAS, I'm pretty sure a lot of people just didn't take it very seriously because one, it's on the computer, right? So it's a different format they're not used to, so it's not as comfortable when they're taking it. I know my math class, we did practice a little bit for the math part, but I didn't think anyone practiced for English. And yeah, I know, overall students, we're not too concerned with preparing for the CAS test.
Yeah, especially since it doesn't affect us in any way. The thing about the PSAT and the SAT is that those are crucial for college. Everyone I know has studied for the SAT in some way, whether it's, night before or taking a long course. But nobody studies for the CASP, and I don't think that it's a good representation of what we can do, not only, as you mentioned, because of the way it's administered, but also because it doesn't have any impact on us, which my English teacher actually brought to our class's attention, that she's yeah, it may not have any academic effect on you personally, but that she said it was responsible for how much funding we get and things like that. I don't know. I don't remember if that's exactly what she said, but that it does have weight, that it is necessary. So I just have really mixed feelings about it because I feel like people don't take it seriously. So I feel like it doesn't really help a whole lot. There isn't a lot of credit that you can put to it, because I know that even my friends that are the most invested in their education don't take this test as seriously as the SAT. So I just feel like there should be some better way to analyze where the schools are at, whether that's on the state level at, changing this test. I was actually thinking that if they use the SAT scores as a way to measure instead, because, then people are more invested in that anyway. That I just feel like this is one extra thing that people don't really take seriously.
But the thing that we can't ignore in the data are the gaps. So one that all of them are startling to me, I'm concerned about them. But the huge gap between English learners and English only and math, the gap shouldn't be that big. It just shouldn't be that big. And I I think that has a lot to do with new teachers, turnover teachers. Need to be thinking about that.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I actually have some classmates who told me that they were just kind of clicking random buttons on the CASP and they weren't taking it seriously. And about the SAT being taken seriously, I agree that people do study for it, but I know that there are some people in our schools who, from my personal experience, I know that a lot of people skipped it, the SAT day, and they also, there's someone in my class who also like just did a few questions and stopped doing it. And I feel like rather than just giving it out to all the students should be able to sign up for it so that we don't waste the money that some students may not want to use.
I feel like then we kind of get skewed results though, because like, at least how I'm interpreting it is that this is kind of trying to analyze all of the students, and I feel like if we did kind of like a sign-up type thing, it'd only be like the academic students that would sign up for that. Like there would be people that aren't really invested in their education that would be like, oh, I don't want to go take that test. So I don't know, I just feel like there should be a better system to get more accurate data.
Yeah, pertaining to the content of the test itself, it gets harder and harder for me to care about the test if some of it I'm just not understanding at all. Is it supposed to be based off of what everyone in California should be knowing? Because I even asked some of the top students at Jeff how they felt about it. They even said, I don't understand some of these questions. And it just sort of it results to just randomly clicking on whatever.
So question, so the lack of understanding is, was the question itself like, was the question confusing, or was it more like we didn't understand, we just didn't have that knowledge, or the setup of the question or the subject of the question was?
Pertaining to math, it was more based off of knowledge we just don't know. And same thing with, I know this presentation didn't cover science, same thing with science, there were laws that most of the students did not know. Pertaining to English, some of the prompts or what it was asking us to do was a little bit confusing at times. Because sometimes we didn't know if it was asking this or that, or what is it really clarifying. And with just all that added in, it just made the test seem sort of not as, well, it just didn't incline students to take it as seriously if they're having a hard time understanding what they're looking at. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I actually like about the SAT. Like I know there's been a lot of talk recently about it like just completely going away, but what I liked about the SAT was the consistency of the types of questions, that you could just kind of tell like what the type of question was, what it was asking. But on the CASP, I had to like try harder to actually understand what they wanted me to do. So I just felt like the actual like phrasing of the questions could have been better, because I feel like if you want to test someone on the material, you have to be really clear with like what you want the person to do. So I feel like it's a little confusing in, you know, like if people are even, like people might understand how to do the material, but it might just be phrased really weirdly. And I think the whole thing with it being on the computers too, I hate doing math on the computer. I can't. When you have to click a bunch of like buttons just to get a square root symbol, it's annoying, and you know, yeah, it's terrible. So, you know, I feel like if it could be in paper form, that would be really nice.
So for the English language learning students, they're taking it in English. And so if it's confusing to someone who's a native English speaker, like what are we doing? And so, you know, okay.
So students that have arrived in the United States for 1 year or less, they're exempt, but they're pretty much the only ones. They're exempt for English language arts, but not for math.
Wow. And there's still a lot of reading in the book. Yeah. Okay. So I saw the scores before I panicked. Like I just want to hold judgment until I get the PSAT, SAT scores, and then I feel like I just want to have a more substantive talk once I have both scores in front of me, and then we can talk about it, because, I mean, I hear it repeatedly. I mean, there's no student that I've spoken to that said, I'm gonna take it seriously, and, you know, and my kids, I was like, threatening them, like, you stay away, you know, take the test. But, you know, the kids have said over and over and over and over that they don't take it seriously, so it's hard for me to then say, let's make a whole bunch of, you know, policy, educational shifts off a test that I'm being repeatedly told I'm just clicking a button. So, you know, I'm waiting for, I would rather just wait for the PSAT and then re-engage in this conversation about what the next steps.
The CSTs are not perfect, but one of the things, if you look back at the way we administered the CSTs, you saw growth year over year. You saw huge growth the first couple of years as teachers were grappling with new standards, and as they were getting results and using data to help them decide what they needed to teach in class. This test has been very difficult for teachers to look at and figure out what do we have to do so that students perform better. It hasn't been as useful. The other thing is the longer we can wait to test students, we tested so early. I mean, a real strategy of many districts is to go as late in the window as you can. If I had had 2 more weeks as a math teacher, some of the content I could have taught, but you've got the whole year's standards in one test, and you know, it's affected by how the student responds. So if John had come across a question he didn't know, it automatically goes down. And so it's kind of, I know it's really important for us to think about how to strategically, if it matters to us, strategically move our assessments as late in the window as possible, especially math.
When did we administer last year? It's usually in April, right?
Last year it was administered late in March, and April was science because AP was in May. So this year we, you know, with Dr. Deloria's recommendation, we did push it, you know, as far to like the end of April as possible.
After break.
After the break.
Is that the latest we could go is end of April?
We try to avoid AP.
APs, I know that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the criticism in the past has been that you don't want teachers teaching to the test. You want this to be organic, that this is a real assessment of what the students are learning. And so even though we are giving free PSAT and free SAT every year, the practice from that is not even going to help with this because it's totally different.
Well, the technical part is different. You're absolutely right about that. I agree with that. And actually, if the test really was written based on the standards and the rigor level of standards, and I would want teachers teaching to the test because they'd be teaching the content. But I don't know that that's true.
Test administration for all sites for English language arts, math, and the science is between April 15th and the 30th.
I don't know what that's going to do to improve student apathy towards the test, though.
It's not, right, I mean, you know, how I
That's
feel
really
about
the
this
issue.
test.
Yeah.
Really just-
All right, if nothing else, so everyone's doing twice, we will move on now to 15B1 through 19, the assortment of BP and AR. Dr. Deloria?
Really quick, sorry. So the CSPA Ledge Day is January 11th. So if you can make it, that would be awesome, because one of the things that we probably would bring up to them is this, that like they vote on this type of stuff. So if you could talk to them and tell them that you do not take this test seriously, stop trying to force it down our throats, like, that would be helpful.
Would actually meet with our lawmakers.
January 11th,
So
it's going to be at the San Mateo Union High School District.
Saturday morning.
Yep.
With
Oh,
yummy
it's not the
food.
CSBA Ledge Day, that's in March?
No, this is San Mateo County.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
same thing, we just bring them here instead of driving to Sacramento, that's
Cool.
crazy.
Yeah.
So it's January
11th.
11th?
Yeah,
Okay, and then where is it?
it's at San Mateo Union High School District.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I'll have them, we'll email it out to you, but just save that date because this would be a good topic to talk about.
She'll let the president of the San Mateo County School Board Association know to email it out to you. Oh, it's the same person, never mind.
Yeah.
It was there.
No, it was late for punching.
I know.
It's late. Yeah.
No, I meant to do that. All right, we're moving on. 15B1 through 19, Dr. Deloria, all the AR and BP.
So these are more from the student services. You'll notice that we're adding a number that we didn't have. The only thing that really stands out for me is the one on immunizations, because we weren't quite up to date in the district, so we're going to fix that. So it's not enough just to update our policies and practices. It's really important that we go back and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we've taken care of that. And I didn't receive any questions from board members on any of this.
I mean, the only question, or it wasn't a question, but just more, I mean, I'm fine with approving the student dress code, right, because it's just the addition of certain things. But at the same time, I still feel like some of the language is ambiguous. It could be interpreted in a multitude of different ways, so, and I know just the school sites are doing a lot to loosen up the dress code a bit, but I still think, like, it's really ambiguous.
But I think this language to help clarify, I don't know, a lot of the dress code has been sexist, and
yeah,
so taking care of some of those things.
So it's still, so I don't know, and I don't want to know if we need to change the IR, but I would be interested at some point, not now, to get a report on what each of the sites are doing, what are the dress code situations at each of the sites, to see if it's matching up. Like, that's how I would prefer to change this, if we needed to change it. But I'm fine with approving this now and just amending it later.
All right.
Or, we're not voting on it, but,
When we get to it, yeah. Okay, if nothing else, then we'll move on to 16, Business Services, 16A1, Resolution Number 2019-20/3, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds 2018 election series being the principal amount of $28 million and approving related documents and actions.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
You're welcome.
President Lee, good evening, everyone. I just want to acknowledge that we have Dale Scott, our financial advisor, and Chick Adams, our bond counsel, in the audience to answer any questions on anything in Section 16 as we go through these. As President Lee introduced, the first item before you is to authorize the issuance of the remainder of our 2018 bond funds for our faculty and staff housing. It's estimated that the principal will be about $28 million. Any questions?
Next step. All right.
Yeah, motion to approve this one.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, there better not be anybody opposed.
No joking.
Fantastic, that's a big one. That's a really big one.
I have a really silly question. Yeah. Do you see where it has comments under 16? Yeah, I saw that. I don't know what mad face.
I know.
Like a mad
I had that
Emoji.
same thought.
I don't know how that got there.
What is she talking about?
Somebody explain it to Dr. D.
Looks like a
It's right here.
Yeah.
Should be a happy face.
I know.
So,
What is that sad face?
I don't know how that happened.
All right,
Did you plant that to see if you're paying attention? Simple.
16A2, approval of resolution 2019-20/4 relating to the COP for $64 million to finance the teacher and staff housing project and refinance solar lease payments and approving related documents and actions. Ms. Van Roophorst.
So, as President Lee introduced, this is to authorize the district to use a financial strategy to borrow funds to complete the rest of our employee housing, and this would be paid back with the rent from the faculty and staff housing. The other component that is new is that we learned that all of our properties have liens against them because of our solar project from 2008. So the money will also be used to buy one of the set of solar panels, probably from Jefferson High School. And then we will own those. We'll have to do the maintenance, but we will also
stop paying the lease on those. And so that money can then be used to repay it, and it'll allow us to have the collateral we need.
Great, fantastic. Are there any other questions?
Thanks for the creative thinking on this.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic. 16A3, Resolution 2019-20/5, ordering an election to authorize the issuance of school bonds, establishing specs of the election order, and requesting consolidation with other elections occurring on March 3rd, 2020. Ms. Van Raaphorst.
Thank you. This ballot measure would ask voters to reauthorize the bond funds that they previously approved in June 2014 and allow to also be used in addition to, for our school site projects, to be used for the construction of a new district office. The board has been exploring ways to build a new district office, and we had talked about developing Serramonte Del Rey to generate income that could then pay back a loan that we would use to build the district office. But this would allow us to not have to take out that loan, and therefore when we develop Serramonte Del Rey, the income generated by this property can be used for any district purposes, so such as improving salaries or student programs or facilities, any purpose. So this way we don't have the interest from a loan, and we don't have the restrictions that come with when you borrow money. Obviously you have to pay it back. Other questions?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Fantastic. And finally, item 16A4, approval of resolution 2019-20/6, ordering an election to authorize the issuance of school bonds, establishing specs of the election order, and requesting consolidation with other elections occurring on November 3rd, 2020. Ms. Van Raaphorst.
Thank you. So this resolution would approve a ballot measure that would ask voters to approve authorized bond funds. It would generate up to $163 million for our district for capital improvements. So this kind of continues our bond projects that we've been doing, improvements to our campuses. And this would extend the marginal tax rate so that as our previous bond projects start falling off the tax rolls, the new bond program would be put into place so that people continue to pay the same tax rate, but we still are generating more funds for our facilities.
Are there any questions?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thanks for being here, Dale and Chick. All right, item 17, consideration of any future agenda items.
Ms. Baca, do we have a date when you're going to share our annual PSAT and SAT data?
I don't have the scores yet, but once I receive it, it will probably be early December.
We only have one.
Yep, December 7th. Yeah, probably January. Okay.
Can we, and it doesn't have to be this year, it could be next year, can we get an update? Can we have Circle Up come back in? We haven't heard from them in a little while.
And then, did we schedule an update from Chartwells about, I know that you gave us an update
I would
weekly, but.
like to recommend maybe that we do it in the spring. I definitely want them to come do an update, but I'd like to give them a little bit more time.
Especially if they come with you.
And there's new smoothie machines.
Can they have two updates? Like one this semester and one in the spring also? Because, like, I don't know, yes, the food has changed, but there's some things like, I don't know, students don't complain.
Yeah.
Like,
That was covered a lot in the student advisory.
So
the quality of food or the length of the lines, or both?
Well, I know we have run out before, we run out of food, and like, I'm pretty sure like, one of my friends found like hair in the food, something like that.
And then I think sometimes kids are swiping, and other times they're there's too much time taken punching in numbers. But I've heard last night the food's great.
So do we want them to just, like, so they don't have to come
We
to
can do
the-
an earlier update too,
All right.
if you want. I mean,
Or do we want them to just go student advisory?
or they can come to student advisory.
Do you want them here, or do you want them with the full student advisory?
I think, yeah, student advisory, because then.
Like
those
maybe we can
main-
have like the first one be with student advisory and then the one like later.
And I think that makes sense, so they can get that feedback and start working on it, so by the time they come to spring, maybe. Cool.
Good call. Thank you. Anything else, anyone?
I've just been noticing that there's been a lot of like really cool things at other schools that I feel like it'd be really helpful for the schools to like communicate more about what kind of different initiatives they're doing at their schools, because I feel like, especially like with the flex time at Jefferson, I feel like that would be really helpful at like all the schools, and there's just so much stuff that like the different schools are doing, like environmentally and just with the different clubs, that I feel like it'd be really cool if we could have more of that implemented in the other schools, because I know that there's a lot of stuff, like especially that I've heard at Jefferson recently, that I'm like, oh, we should do that at Terra Nova, and I'm like, wait, we should do that at all the schools. So I just feel like having it more, because like we're the individual schools, but we're also like a unified district, so I feel like we should try to get more unified and yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, so we adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Natividad Kulan Fong, who passed away too soon on October 26th. Ms. Natty was a fixture in the Daly City community for more than 30 years as an advocate for public schools, families, and many causes. Her volunteer career in PTA began when her children were in elementary school at John F. Kennedy. As her involvement grew every year, in her gentle but persuasive way, she recruited other parents to volunteer and serve in PTA. She was a mentor and friend to many, always more than willing to lend a hand and offer her knowledge, encouraging others to venture out of their comfort zone to find their voice and confidence. She was a leader and past president of the Jefferson Council, continuing to serve long after she retired a few years ago.
4 times.
Passionate about fostering strong family school connections and community outreach, Natty served from 1999 to 2001 as president of the 17th District of the California PTA, representing more than 18,000 members in San Mateo County. Natty loved to dance hula, scrapbook, cook Asian dishes, and host parties. Natty's vibrant and generous spirit will be missed by all who knew her. Our heartfelt condolences go to her husband Raymond, her children Loretta and Mark, and her extended Ohana.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:13 p.m.
Does everyone remember we have a site meeting here at 3:30 tomorrow?